morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks. Great to be here. As Amiko said, I have a long relationship with Russia and a shorter relationship with Ukraine. As a NASA astronaut, you spend a lot of time traveling back and forth to Russia, and I made a lot of friends there over the years. It was kind of a weird place in that, you could see the best of society and the worst of society within the 5 minutes of each other, and so I always struggled with that. And it wasn't until Russia was talking about invading Ukraine that I really got involved in this cause of supporting this country that is a free country and a developing democracy in Europe, which is it's really important for us to support them. I mean, if you believe in democracy. So the way I got involved is at the beginning of the war. I'd actually talked to Putin one time when I was in space, and it was right after my sister-in-law, Gabby Giffords, was shot. It was a few days after. And it was supposed to be a conference with the whole crew, which generally means if you're talking to the President of the United States, he talks to the U.S. crew members, and the Russian president or dictator would talk to the cosmonauts. But in this case, since it was right after Gabby's shooting, he spent the whole time talking to me, and I talked back in a little bit of Russian. But one thing he said to me is he says, if you need anything, you just ask. Just ask me if you ever need anything. So when they were building up forces on the border between Russia and Ukraine, I tweeted out at Putin and I said, you said I could ask you anything, and I said, please do not do this. This is going to be not only a mistake for the whole free world, but also a strategic and debilitating mistake for Russia. Soon after, this guy, Dmitry Rogozin, who used to be the head of the Russian Space Agency, started making threats to the U.S. crew members on board the International Space Station, indicating that they would leave them, abandon the person that they were responsible for, abandon them in space. So I got into this Twitter war with this guy Rogozin, in Russian, by the way, which I don't know if you guys ever noticed any of that, but the way it was just, it wasn't my Russian. It was my English with my Russian language teacher's help, which the way she described it was like some foul-talking Navy sailor speaking in the Russian language of Pushkin, because her grammar was so perfect. And apparently this just like blew people's minds over there that I was getting into this conflict with him, and we were like going at each other. This guy eventually tried to play soldier, got his ass blown up literally. I don't know how serious his injuries were, but he's still around.
Literally ass was
blown.
Literally.
Yeah. Got his ass blown up at a birthday party in Ukraine. But I think a HIMARS, actually.
I think so.
I think it was a HIMARS attack. So anyway, the Ukrainian government noticed this, and then I also, on my own, I was like, these people need help. Let me see if I can raise some money. And I don't know if you ever heard of NFTs. They used to be a thing. I actually raised on my own by having this company make these NFTs to support Ukraine. I was able to raise $500,000, and I gave it to
NFTs. What?
Yeah, it's called a non-fungible token. It's like cryptocurrency with a picture.
Okay.
And it's kind of a ripoff in that, like, I wouldn't have done it to make money, but I felt okay doing it to raise money. And I thought the people that were buying it knew that this was a fundraiser. So in any case, that got the attention of President Zelensky and the Ukrainian government, particularly this organization called United 24, which is the fundraising arm of Ukraine, and they have raised probably over $1 billion, I'm sure, by now. So they asked me to come on board and be a United 24 ambassador for Ukraine to raise money. And I had some options of what I could do. they were thinking maybe drones or weapons. It turns out that Mark Hamill is a better guy for the drones. But I didn't want to do anything that was arms related, only because as a retired U.S. Navy captain, I thought that, it was just a little bit weird for me. It felt weird raising money for weapons. In any case, so as a kid, I was an EMT, volunteer, and then later paid when I was in college. And I decided, well, let me see how much money I can raise for ambulances. So that was my cause. And I think the war started in February.
24th, yes.
February 24th of that year. I was in. President Zelensky invited me to Ukraine for the first time in around October, November, which was the first time I was ever in a war zone in my life, despite at least on the ground in a war zone. Incredibly moving experience. Going there for the first time, you take the overnight train. The train stops. The lights are out. It's a long trip. You fly to Poland. You take a car from Poland to the border. You take the train into Kyiv. And I was there for about 3 days. Went to Bucha and saw where the massacre, of hundreds of people, and saw the grave sites. Visited this children's hospital called Akhmatit. It's an acronym. I don't know what it stands for.
In translation, it's Akhmatit. It's a translation of a hospital of mother and child. And it had the largest oncology unit in Ukraine.
Yeah, and it was quite shocking to go in there and see the looks on these kids' faces that are injured, but also their parents were killed. Or their parents at war, and their apartment was, bombed. It was really, really heartbreaking. But I went a second time about a year later for a conference about the war. And then it wasn't until this past January, my brother, who's a U.S. Senator, calls me and he says, hey, do you want to come to see the president's address to Congress, the first address to Congress? And it's not called a State of the Union because he'd only been president for a few months, so it's something different. And my brother's like, yeah, I can't get anyone to come with me. And I got like a couple of seats. You want to go? And I was like, no, I don't want to go. But if given the option to go to the Summer Olympics in 1933, would you go? The Berlin Olympics. I probably would go to be a witness of history. Yeah. Even though I felt disgusted by being there, I felt it was important for people that don't agree with the current policies to be present. So we get there, Trump does his thing, gives his speech, and then my brother goes, hey, Ukrainians really need to, and this was right after the Zelensky, pretty soon after the Zelensky altercation, which is just outraged me. One thing that really pissed me off about that especially was when the media started going after him for using the word costume. When he said, next time I'll wear a costume. Mm-hmm. Thinking that was a joke, not understanding that in Ukrainian and Russian, the word for suit is costume.
Yeah.
That's the word. That's what you call it. We've actually had Americans show up in costume at a Russian party in Star City because they said, hey, wear a costume, when it was suit and tie.
Yeah.
You show up as a clown. Excuse me, I'm here. But my brother says, hey, let's go. The Ukrainians really need to see that they still have support in America, in the United States. He goes, you want to go? And I go, when? He goes, tomorrow. So I call Miko, and Miko's like, yeah, you definitely should go. And then my brother calls Gabby, and Gabby's like, yeah, go. So we went on this, which was my third trip. It was probably my brother's second, I think, which was different than the other times I had went there, because the other times I just went by myself. And now I'm going with a U.S. senator, who's my brother, and we get there and we're driving around in a 5-car security detail where normally I just Uber in Kyiv. So that was a little different. But we get there, and it was I would say the most significant of the 3 trips I've had, because of what we saw and the people we spoke to. We went and visited, well, first, before we got there, we went to Poland on the border where they had all these weapons that they weren't allowed to send. They were just sitting there out in the open. The Ukrainians couldn't use them. And we go and we visit this secret F-16 base, and met with a lot of the pilots, the MiG pilots and F-16 pilots. You can just see the look on these guys' faces that they knew that they would be flying into harm's way without the necessary the intelligence that they had previously gotten. In other words, not knowing where the Russians have moved the surface-to-air missiles, but they were going to fly anyway because their mission was mostly to shoot down the drones and cruise missiles. And